You know that feeling? That gut-wrenching moment when your own family, the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, treat your children like absolute garbage? Like they're nothing more than scraps? I do. And that day, something inside me finally snapped. For years I'd watched it happen. The favoritism, the subtle digs, the way my kids, Alyssa and Owen, were always an afterthought. I'm Noelle, a 34-year-old single mom, and my two amazing children are 10 and 12. My sister Michelle, 36, has always been the golden child. Married well, beautiful house, perfect life. And somehow that made her kids inherently more worthy of love and attention than mine. I kept hoping things would change, kept making excuses, but deep down, I knew it was a losing battle. It was just a typical Sunday afternoon, or so I thought. I pulled up to my parents' suburban home, the house where Michelle and I grew up. So many memories lived in those walls, some good, but increasingly more painful ones. Alyssa and Owen, excited for what they believed would be a family dinner, followed me inside. Michelle was already there with her twins, Sophia and Mason, both 8. They were sprawled across the living room couch, tablets in hand, completely oblivious to our arrival. My kids stood politely by the door waiting to be seen, waiting to be acknowledged. "Oh good. You're here," Mom said, not even glancing up from her phone. Her voice was flat, devoid of the warmth she usually reserved for. Well, for Michelle. "Michelle, honey, what do you and the twins want for dinner?" "I was thinking of ordering from that nice Italian place you love." Michelle barely looked up from painting her nails a garish shade of pink. "The twins want pizza, but make sure it's from Tony's, not that cheap place you usually order from. And I'll have the seafood linguine with extra shrimp." "Of course, darling," Mom cooed, already pulling up the menu, her voice suddenly warm, grandmotherly. "What about you two?" she asked Michelle's twins. Sophia, with that entitled little smirk I'd grown to despise, chimed in. "I want the pizza with extra cheese and pepperoni. And Mason wants the same, but with sausage too." "Perfect. Grandma will make sure you get exactly what you want." My dad even chimed in from his recliner, still not bothering to acknowledge my own children, who stood patiently, silently. Alyssa tugged on my sleeve, her voice a small whisper. "Mom, when can we tell them what we want?" I squeezed her hand. "Just wait a minute, sweetheart." But the minutes stretched. Mom scrolled, Michelle consulted on appetizers, Dad offered snacks to their grandchildren. My children stood there like invisible ghosts, and my chest tightened with that familiar cocktail of anger and bitter disappointment. Finally, Alyssa, with the innocent boldness only children possess, stepped forward. "Grandma, what can Owen and I have for dinner?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mom looked up, annoyed, as if Alyssa had dared to interrupt something incredibly important. And then she spoke, her voice cold as a winter wind. "Your kids can eat whatever scraps are left in the kitchen. They're not guests here." The words hit me like a physical blow. But what came next was even worse. Michelle looked up from her nails, a slow, cruel smirk spreading across her face. It was the same smirk she used to wear as a kid, right before she got me into trouble. "And don't forget, Noelle, I'm staying all week, so you're covering my meals too. It's the least you can do since Mom and Dad are letting you use their guest room." "Wait, what? I wasn't staying here. I live 20 minutes away in my own apartment." But before I could even process that baffling lie, Dad delivered the final insult. "Now go set the table like a good little servant," he mumbled, his eyes glued to some sports highlights. The room went silent, save for the frantic pounding of my own heart. I looked at my children's faces. Alyssa's eyes were welling up and Owen's jaw was clenched tight, a mirror of my own contained fury. They were old enough to understand every single cruel word. I could have screamed. I could have unleashed years of pent-up rage. I could have demanded to know why my children were being treated like second-class citizens in their own grandparents' home. I could have asked Michelle why she thought I, a single mom driving a 10-year-old Civic, should pay for her meals when she drove a BMW. Instead I stayed quiet. Sometimes the best revenge requires patience. "Come on, kids," I said softly, my voice surprisingly steady. "Let's go." "But Mom, aren't we staying for dinner?" Owen asked, confused. "We're going somewhere better," I replied, taking both their hands and heading for the door. "Where are you going?" Michelle called out, annoyed that her personal entertainment was leaving. "Out," I said simply, not turning around. "Well, don't expect us to save you any food," Mom added with a dismissive sniff. I didn't respond. I just kept walking, my children's hands in mine, until we reached my car. Once we were buckled in driving away, Alyssa finally spoke. "Mom, why were they so mean to us?" I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "I don't know, sweetheart. But you know what? We're going to have a much better dinner than they are." "Where are we going?" Owen asked, a spark of curiosity replacing the hurt. I smiled for the first time that day. "Morton's Steakhouse." Both kids gasped. Morton's was the fancy downtown restaurant, the one we'd always driven past but never entered. It was the kind of place where dinner for 3 would easily cost more than I usually spent on groceries in a week. But Mom, that's so expensive, Alyssa said, practical beyond her years. Tonight we're celebrating, I announced, pulling into the restaurant's parking lot. What are we celebrating? Owen asked. The fact that we deserve better, I replied. The hostess at Morton's was everything my family wasn't. Warm, welcoming, genuinely happy to see us. She led us to a beautiful table by the window, and within minutes we had warm bread, ice water with lemon, and menus that made my children's eyes light up. Mom, can I really order anything? Alyssa whispered, awestruck. Anything you want, baby. They ordered like the children they were, but with new confidence. Owen got a filet mignon like a grown-up, and Alyssa chose the fancy chicken tenders with truffle fries. I ordered the salmon and a glass of wine I couldn't really afford, but tonight I didn't care. While we waited for our food, I excused myself and stepped outside. It was time to make that one phone call. Hello, Robert, I said when my dad picked up. Noelle, why are you calling? Aren't you coming back to set the table? His voice was laced with irritation. No, Dad, I'm not. But I wanted to let you know that I've made some calls. There was a heavy silence on the other end. You see, I've been doing your bookkeeping for 5 years, managing your rental properties, filing your taxes, dealing with tenants' maintenance requests. Everything for free because we're family. Noelle, what are you getting at? He demanded. I'm getting at the fact that I just resigned. Effective immediately. I also called your tenants and let them know they'll need a new contact person for maintenance issues, since I'm no longer managing the properties. You can't do that. Actually, I can. I was never formally employed by you, remember? No contract, no notice required. Oh, and Dad, I also called your accountant. Turns out all those tax documents you need for this year's filing? They're at my house in my personal files. You'll need to find someone else to organize them and deliver them to Mr. Peterson before the deadline next month. I could hear him sputtering on the other end. But wait, there's more. I continued, feeling oddly calm, almost detached. I also called Michelle's husband, David. Had a lovely chat with him about how Michelle is planning to stay at your house all week and expects me to cover her meals. He was very surprised to hear this, especially since he thought she was visiting her college friend Rebecca in Chicago this week. The silence stretched longer this time, thick with disbelief. Turns out David's been wondering where Michelle has been disappearing to lately. He was very interested to learn about her week-long stays at your house. Very interested indeed. Noelle, you need to. I'm not done yet. I also called Aunt Patricia. Patricia, Dad's sister, was the family matriarch, the one who controlled the family trust fund that supplemented my parents' retirement income. She was fascinated to hear about how you've been treating your grandchildren. Apparently, she's been wondering why Alyssa and Owen never seem to be included in the family photos you sent her. You had no right, he roared. I had every right. Those are my children you insulted. My children who have done nothing but love you unconditionally, despite the way you treat them. My voice finally started to crack with emotion. And Patricia agrees with me. She's very disappointed in you both. I hung up and walked back inside where my children were marveling at the enormous steaks that had just arrived. Mom, this is the best dinner ever, Owen said, trying to cut his steak like an adult. It really is, I agreed. And for the first time in years I meant it. We were halfway through dessert. A chocolate lava cake we were sharing. When my phone started ringing. It was Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad called. Voicemail. Then Michelle. Voicemail. Then Dad again. This time I finally answered. Noelle, you need to come back here right now, he said, his voice tight with panic. No, I don't think I do. Your sister is having a breakdown. David showed up here an hour ago demanding to know why Michelle lied to him about where she was going this week. Apparently, she's been telling him she was visiting friends when she's been coming here. That sounds like a Michelle problem, not a Noelle problem. And your Aunt Patricia called. She's furious with us. She's threatening to review our monthly allowance from the trust. Good for her. Noelle, please. We need you to come back. You can fix this. We need help with the rental properties and the tax documents. And Dad, I interrupted, my voice sharp and clear. Do you remember what you called me tonight? There was a pause. What? You called me a servant. In front of my children. Your grandchildren. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. And Mom told my kids they could eat scraps. Scraps, Dad. Like they were dogs. We were just. No, you weren't just anything. You were cruel. You've been cruel for years, and I've been accepting it because I kept hoping you'd change. But tonight, in front of my children, you showed your true colors. Noelle, please, we can talk about this. We're talking about it now. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to hire a proper property manager for your rentals. You're going to find a new bookkeeper for your taxes. And you're going to figure out your own family drama with Michelle. But we can't afford. You can afford it. You've been getting my services for free for 5 years. Professional property management costs about 12% of rental income. Professional bookkeeping costs about $300 a month. You've been saving almost $6,000 a year by using me as free labor. There was silence as he did the math. And Dad, if you ever want to see Alyssa and Owen again, you and Mom owe them an apology. A real one, not some half-hearted, "I'm sorry you felt bad" nonsense. A real acknowledgement of how you treated them. Noelle, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being a mother. My job is to protect my children, even from their own grandparents if necessary. I hung up and turned my phone to silent. Who was that, Mom? Alyssa asked, chocolate on her chin. Nobody important, sweetheart. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Highlights included from Mom. Noelle, call me immediately. This is ridiculous. From Dad. Your aunt wants to have a family meeting. She's threatening to cut our allowance. From Michelle. Thanks a lot, sister. David wants a divorce now. I hope you're happy. And then from Michelle again. I'm telling Mom and Dad that you're poisoning Alyssa and Owen against the family. There was even a message from an unknown number, later revealed to be David. Thank you for finally telling me the truth about Michelle's trips. I've suspected for months that something was wrong. I made coffee, got the kids ready for school, and ignored every single message. But they kept coming throughout the next few days. By Tuesday lunchtime, my phone was buzzing constantly. I finally turned it off and focused on work, but the anxiety was building in my chest. Had I gone too far? Was I destroying my family over one terrible evening? These doubts plagued me until I picked up Alyssa and Owen from school. Alyssa bounced into the car with a huge smile. Mom, guess what? I told my teacher about our fancy dinner last night. And she said it sounded wonderful. She asked if we were celebrating something special. What did you tell her? I asked, genuinely curious. I told her we were celebrating being awesome. Alyssa said matter-of-factly. Owen snorted with laughter from the back seat. Alyssa, that's not what Mom said. I know, but that's what it felt like, Alyssa replied. For the first time in forever, we felt awesome instead of, like we were bothering everyone. My heart clenched. My 8-year-old daughter had articulated exactly what I'd been feeling for years. We'd been made to feel like we were bothering our own family simply by existing. That evening, after homework was done and the kids were in bed, I finally turned my phone back on. The messages had multiplied. There were now over 60 texts and 25 missed calls. But mixed in with the angry messages from my family were some surprising ones. David had texted several times. Noelle, I know this is awkward, but could we talk? There are things about Michelle's behavior that I think you should know. Things that have been concerning me for a while. My neighbor, Mrs. Chun, had left a voicemail. Noelle dear, I saw you leaving yesterday with the children dressed so nicely. I hope you had a wonderful evening. You deserve good things. Most surprisingly, there was a message from my cousin Rachel, Patricia's daughter, who I hadn't spoken to in months. Noelle, Mom told me what happened. I'm so proud of you for finally standing up to Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda. Owen and Alyssa are lucky to have such a fierce mama bear. These messages reminded me that not everyone in my extended family was blind to what had been happening. Some people had been watching and waiting for me to find my voice. Around 10 p.m. on Tuesday, my doorbell rang. I peeked through the window and saw Michelle standing on my porch. She was still in the expensive outfit she'd been wearing 2 days before, but now it was wrinkled and disheveled. Her perfect makeup was smeared, and her hair looked like she'd been running her hands through it in frustration. I debated not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want, Michelle? I asked through the closed door. Noelle, please. I need to talk to you. David kicked me out. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Michelle looked terrible, worse than I'd ever seen her. The confident, smirking woman from Sunday was gone, replaced by someone who looked genuinely broken. Can I come in, please? I hesitated, then stepped aside. The kids are sleeping. Keep your voice down. Michelle stumbled into my living room and collapsed onto my second-hand couch. For a moment, we just stared at each other. You destroyed my life, she said finally, but there was no venom in it. Just exhaustion. I told the truth, I replied. There's a difference. David wants half of everything. The house, the cars, the kids' college funds. He's hiring some shark lawyer who specializes in high-conflict divorces involving infidelity. She laughed bitterly. Apparently, lying about where you're going counts as suspicious behavior that warrants further investigation. I sat down across from her, maintaining distance. Michelle, what did you expect? You've been lying to your husband for months, maybe years, based on what David said. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. Michelle's voice rose, then she caught herself and lowered it again. I just needed space sometimes. Marriage is suffocating, Noelle. You wouldn't understand because you've never been married, right? Because being a single mother is so much easier than being married to a wealthy man who adores you. Michelle flinched. David doesn't adore me. He's been questioning everything I do lately. Do you know what it's like to have someone constantly asking where you're going, who you're with, why you need money for things? I stared at her in disbelief. Michelle, David provides well for your family. You drive a nice car. You live in a beautiful house. If he was really being unreasonable, would you be able to disappear for days at a time to stay with mom and dad? You don't understand. No, I don't. Because what I see is a woman who had everything handed to her, and threw it away because she was bored. I stood up. And what I really don't understand is why you thought it was okay to treat my children like garbage, just because your life wasn't exciting enough. Michelle was quiet for a long moment. Then to my surprise she started crying. Not the pretty tears she perfected for getting her way, but ugly, gut-wrenching sobs. I know I've been awful, she said between gasps. I know I've been a terrible sister and a worse aunt. But Noelle, I don't know how to be anything else. What do you mean? Do you remember when we were kids? Mom and Dad always compared us. Michelle's so pretty. Michelle's so smart. Michelle married well. They turned me into this thing that only has value based on what I can achieve or who I can impress. I wanted to feel sorry for her, but the wounds were too fresh. That doesn't excuse how you've treated Alyssa and Owen. I know it doesn't. God, Noelle, when I saw your kids yesterday, the way they just stood there waiting to be acknowledged, it reminded me of you when we were little. Always trying so hard to get Mom and Dad's attention while they fussed over me. This was not the conversation I'd expected to have. I was jealous, Michelle continued. Jealous of you. Jealous of me? I couldn't hide my incredulity. Michelle, you have everything. I have things. You have kids who actually love you. Do you know what Sophia said to me last week? She said she couldn't wait to go to boarding school so she wouldn't have to live with me anymore. She's 9 years old. Mason barely speaks to me unless he wants something. I thought about my own children, how they ran to hug me, how they still wanted me to read them bedtime stories, how they shared their dreams and fears. That's not my fault, I said quietly. I know. None of this is your fault. You've been the responsible one, the good daughter, the devoted mother. And I don't even know what I've been. We sat in silence for a while. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, the normal sounds of a quiet house where children slept safely in their beds. Michelle, why are you really here? She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Because you're the only person who ever really knew me. Before I became this person I don't even recognize. What do you want from me? I want to know how to fix this. How to be better. How to be the kind of person my kids might actually want to spend time with. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and for the first time in years I saw glimpses of the girl she used to be. The girl who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms, who taught me how to braid friendship bracelets, who cried when our goldfish died. Michelle, I can't fix your marriage or your relationship with your kids. But I can tell you that if you want any kind of relationship with me and my children going forward, things have to change. What do you mean? I mean no more comments about Alyssa and Owen being less deserving than Sophia and Mason. No more expecting me to subsidize your lifestyle. No more treating me like the family servant. Michelle nodded slowly. I can do that. And you need to get help. Therapy, counseling, whatever it takes to figure out why you've been making these choices. David's been saying that for years. Maybe you should have listened. Michelle stayed for another hour and we talked more honestly than we had in years. She told me about feeling trapped in her marriage, about the pressure to maintain appearances, about growing apart from David and not knowing how to fix it. I told her about the years of feeling invisible in our family, about working multiple jobs to make ends meet while she complained about being bored, about watching my children's faces every time they were ignored or dismissed. It wasn't a magical reconciliation. Too much damage had been done for that, but it was a start. Before she left, Michelle pulled an envelope from her purse. This is what I owe you for all those meals. I calculated it going back 6 months. I opened the envelope and found $800 in cash. Michelle, this is too much. No, it's not. It's probably not enough. She paused at the door. Noelle, thank you. For what? For finally making me face the truth about who I've become. After she left, I sat in my quiet living room and thought about the conversation. Part of me felt sorry for Michelle, but a bigger part of me was still angry. Having reasons for bad behavior didn't excuse the behavior itself. The next morning brought more chaos. Mom called while I was making breakfast for the kids. Noelle, you need to do something about your sister. She showed up here at midnight crying hysterically. She's been sleeping in your old room and she won't stop talking about how her life is ruined. That's not my problem, Mom. Of course it's your problem. She's your sister. She's your daughter. You deal with her. Noelle, Elizabeth, don't you dare take that tone with me. I almost laughed. Even now, after everything that had happened, she was trying to scold me like I was a child. Mom, I'm 34 years old. I have 2 children of my own to worry about. Michelle is an adult who made adult choices. The consequences are hers to deal with. But she needs family support. Like the support you gave Alyssa and Owen on Sunday. The line went quiet. That's different, Mom said finally. How is it different? Michelle is going through a divorce. She needs us. And my children need their grandparents to treat them with basic human decency. Which is more important to you? Another long pause. Noelle, you're being unreasonable. No, Mom. For the first time in my life, I'm being reasonable. I'm protecting my children from people who treat them poorly, even if those people are family. I hung up and turned to find Alyssa and Owen standing in the kitchen doorway, clearly having heard at least part of the conversation. Mom, are you and Aunt Michelle fighting? Owen asked. We're having some grown-up problems, yes? Is it because of what happened on Sunday? Alyssa asked quietly. I knelt down to their level. Partly, yes. But it's really about how people in our family treat each other. Sometimes adults need to have difficult conversations to make things better. Are we still going to see Grandma and Grandpa? Owen asked. Both kids looked uncertain. They were really mean to us, Alyssa said. But they're still our grandparents, Owen added, clearly conflicted. Here's what I want you both to know, I said, pulling them close. You never have to spend time with people who make you feel bad about yourselves, even if they're family. Family should make you feel loved and safe and important. What if they say they're sorry? Alyssa asked. Then we'll see if their actions match their words, I replied. By the way, if this story has you on the edge of your seat, or you just appreciate a good dose of family drama, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, more unbelievable stories are coming. The rest of the week was a whirlwind of phone calls, text messages, and family drama. David called to thank me again, and to let me know that he and Michelle were going to start marriage counseling to address their communication issues. I feel like an idiot for not addressing our problems sooner, he told me. But I kept hoping things would improve on their own. Your phone call made me realize we needed professional help to get back on track. That stung a little. I realized I had been enabling Michelle's behavior by covering for her, making excuses and presenting a united family front, even when I knew she was being unreasonable. Patricia called midweek to check on me and update me on the family situation. Your parents are scrambling, she said. They're realizing how much work you actually did for them, and they're having trouble finding reliable help. The property management company they hired is suggesting several improvements to their rental units that will cost money up front. That's not my problem anymore, I said, though I felt a tiny pang of guilt. Good for you. And Michelle called me yesterday. She wants to know if I'll pay for therapy. What did you tell her? I told her I'd consider it if she makes genuine amends to you and the children first. Real amends, not just words. The following Thursday evening, I was helping Alyssa with her math homework when someone knocked on the door. Through the window I could see Dad standing on my porch, looking older and more tired than I remembered. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Noelle, we need to talk. I'm busy helping Alyssa with homework. This will just take a minute. Dad, if you're here to ask me to come back and manage your properties or do your taxes, the answer is no. I'm not here about that. He looked down at his hands. I'm here to apologize. Really? Apologize? Not just because Patricia is making you. I studied his face, looking for signs of sincerity. Can I come in, please? Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. Dad walked into my living room and looked around, really seeing my space for probably the first time. The second-hand furniture, the carefully budgeted decorations, the children's artwork covering the refrigerator. You've made a nice home here, he said quietly. Thank you. He sat down heavily on my couch. Noelle, I've been a terrible father and an even worse grandfather. I remained standing, arms crossed. Yes, you have. I don't have excuses. I can't blame your mother or Michelle or anyone else. I made choices about how to treat you and your children, and those choices were wrong. Why? I asked. Why were Michelle's kids always more important than mine? Dad was quiet for a long time. Because it was easier, he said finally. Michelle demanded attention. She threw tantrums if she didn't get her way. You were always so independent, so capable. You never complained, so I thought you didn't need as much. I was independent because I had to be. And I didn't complain because when I did, no one listened. I know that now. And I know that's my fault. Dad looked up at me with tears in his eyes. Your kids are amazing, Noelle. Alyssa is so smart and kind, and Owen is thoughtful and funny. I've missed so much by not really paying attention to them. Yes, you have. Can you forgive me? Can they? I don't know, Dad. Forgiveness isn't something you can demand. It's something you earn through changed behavior over time. He nodded. What can I do? How can I make this right? Start by treating Alyssa and Owen the same way you treat Sophia and Mason. Not just when Patricia is watching, but all the time. Remember their birthdays without mom having to remind you. Ask about their interests. Actually listen when they talk to you. I can do that. And Dad, if you ever call me a servant again, or tell my children they can eat scraps, I will walk out of your life forever. Do you understand? I understand. After Dad left, I sat in my living room feeling emotionally drained. The past week had been like a tornado, tearing through my family and leaving chaos in its wake. But maybe, like after a real tornado, we could rebuild something better from the debris. That afternoon, Aunt Patricia called. Noelle, dear, I heard about what happened yesterday. I'm sorry you had to get involved, Aunt Patricia. Don't you dare apologize. I'm proud of you for finally standing up to them. I've been watching this favoritism for years, and I've been wondering when you'd reach your breaking point. You have. Of course. Do you think I'm blind? Every family gathering, every holiday, Michelle's children are showered with attention and gifts while Alyssa and Owen are treated like afterthoughts. It's been breaking my heart. I felt tears starting to form. Finally, someone in the family saw what I'd been experiencing. I've scheduled a family meeting for this Sunday, Patricia continued. Everyone will be there. Your parents, Michelle, you and the children. We're going to have a frank discussion about how this family treats its members. Aunt Patricia, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I don't think... Noelle, trust me, your parents depend on that trust fund allowance to supplement their retirement. Michelle has been asking me for loans to maintain her lifestyle because David's been questioning their expenses. They'll listen to me. She was right. Patricia controlled the family money, and money was the only language my family seemed to understand. Sunday arrived, and I found myself sitting in Patricia's elegant living room with my children on either side of me. Mom and Dad sat across from us, looking deeply uncomfortable and angry. Michelle was in the corner, her eyes red from crying, shooting me death glares every few minutes. Patricia, 78 years old and still commanding respect in her pearls and crisp blazer, stood at the front of the room like a judge about to deliver a verdict. I've called this meeting because this family has lost its way, she began, her voice unwavering. I've been watching for years as some members of this family have been treated as more valuable than others, and I won't stand for it anymore. Patricia, this is really unnecessary, Dad started. Robert, you will listen, Patricia said sharply. Noelle has been managing your rental properties and doing your bookkeeping for 5 years without compensation. She saved you thousands of dollars while working full-time and raising 2 children alone. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Meanwhile, Michelle has been lying to her husband about her whereabouts and expecting Noelle to subsidize her meals while she stays at your house. The level of entitlement and disrespect in this family is appalling. It's not that simple, Michelle started. It's exactly that simple, Patricia cut her off. Last Sunday you allowed your mother to tell Alyssa and Owen that they could eat scraps. Scraps. These are your grandchildren, Linda. Your flesh and blood. Mom's face was turning red. We didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? Please explain to me how telling children they can eat scraps while their cousins order from expensive restaurants is anything other than cruel. The room fell silent. Patricia turned to Alyssa and Owen, her voice becoming gentle. Alyssa, Owen, I want you to know that you're great and loves you very much. You are important members of this family, and you deserve to be treated with love and respect. Alyssa nodded solemnly while Owen sat up straighter in his chair. Now, Patricia continued, turning back to the adults. Here's what's going to happen. Robert and Linda, you will apologize to Alyssa and Owen for your behavior last Sunday. A real apology. Patricia, we can't just, Dad began. You will apologize, or your monthly allowance from the trust will be suspended indefinitely. Dad's mouth snapped shut. Michelle, you will pay Noelle back for every meal you've expected her to cover during your visits. You will also apologize for your role in last Sunday's humiliation. Michelle looked like she wanted to argue, but Patricia's steely gaze silenced her. And going forward, all grandchildren will be treated equally in this family. Equal gifts, equal attention, equal respect. If I hear of any favoritism, there will be consequences. Mom finally found her voice. Patricia, you can't dictate how we run our family. I can and I will. The family trust exists to support family unity, not to enable cruel behavior. Alyssa and Owen are part of this family, and they will be treated as such. The apologies that followed were awkward and clearly forced, but they happened. Dad mumbled something about not meaning to hurt anyone's feelings. Mom said she was sorry for her poor choice of words. Michelle grudgingly agreed to pay me back, though she made it clear she thought I was overreacting. But the apologies weren't really the point. The point was that someone with power in the family had finally acknowledged what I'd been experiencing for years. As we prepared to leave, Patricia pulled me aside. Noelle, I want you to know that I've added a codicil to my will. Alyssa and Owen will receive equal inheritances with their cousins. I should have done this years ago. I hugged her, feeling lighter than I had in years. 2 weeks later, things in my family had definitely changed, though not always in ways I expected. Mom and Dad hired a property management company and were shocked by how much work I'd actually been doing for them. They also had to hire an accountant, which cost them significantly more than the $300 a month I'd mentioned. Michelle and David's marriage had been struggling for a while, and their problems ran much deeper than her lies about visiting our parents. It turned out Michelle had been increasingly dissatisfied with their relationship, and David had been suspicious of her behavior for months. My phone call just gave him the evidence he needed to confront the issues they'd been avoiding. Surprisingly, the marital problems seemed to humble Michelle somewhat. The reality check of potentially losing her comfortable lifestyle made her more aware of how she'd been treating others. She was actually nicer to Alyssa and Owen now, though I suspected it was partly because she couldn't afford to alienate any family members. The biggest change was in my relationship with my parents. The forced equality mandated by Patricia's ultimatum was awkward at first, but gradually it became more natural. Mom started actually asking Alyssa and Owen about their interests in school activities. Dad began including them in conversations and activities with their cousins. Was it perfect? No. Did it feel completely genuine? Not always. But my children were no longer treated like second-class citizens in their own family, and that was worth everything. The best part was watching Alyssa and Owen flourish with newfound attention and respect. Alyssa joined the school's debate team and confidently spoke up in family discussions. Owen started expressing his opinions more freely and stopped shrinking into the background during family gatherings. As for me, I learned something valuable that night at Morton's Steakhouse. Sometimes the best revenge isn't screaming or fighting. Sometimes it's simply refusing to accept treatment you don't deserve and having the courage to walk away. That one phone call changed everything. Not because I destroyed my family, but because I finally stood up for myself and my children. I stopped being the family servant and started being a mother who demanded respect. And you know what? We never did finish setting that table. Looking back, I realized that the night everything fell apart was actually the night everything came together. My children learned that they deserved respect. I learned that I had more power than I thought. And my family learned that their behavior had consequences. The fancy steakhouse dinner cost me $300 I couldn't really afford. But teaching my children that they were worth more than scraps, that was priceless. 2 weeks had passed since that terrible Sunday, and the changes in my family dynamics were already becoming apparent. The initial chaos had settled into a new, more honest way of relating to each other. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the moments when we finally say enough. That Sunday dinner wasn't the end of my relationship with my family. It was the beginning of a better one. One built on respect instead of obligation, on love instead of duty, and on the understanding that family isn't just about blood. It's about how you treat the people you claim to love. Alyssa and Owen still talk about that night at Morton's as one of their favorite memories. Not because of the expensive food, but because it was the night their mom showed them they were worth fighting for. And that, more than any revenge, was exactly what I wanted them to know. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand with family, even when it felt impossible? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.